God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Baldur's Gate 3. So today we're going to start out our class guide for the early access for Baldur's Gate 3, and we're going to start off with the Fighter, which is available as a class to play in early access. And because we know this game is so steeped in Dungeons & Dragons, we can go ahead and start talking about what the Fighter can do. Now keep in mind the Fighter in the early access will only get to around level 4, so that's what we're going to focus on in this video, as well as the archetypes that the Fighter can actually go into that's already been announced they can do in the early access, and we're going to go into that as well. Now before we get started, if you are new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in RPG, JRPG, CRPG, and MMO content, especially the old school kind, because that is what we cover here. And a big shout out to the members of Napalm for supporting this channel. I thank you so much. And if you are interested in becoming a member, please click the join button down below for more information and a list of perks. Alright, so let's start off with the Fighter. Fighters are known to perhaps be the most diverse class of characters in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. Questing knights, conquering overlords, royal champions, elite foot soldiers, hardened mercenaries, and bandit kings are all fighters. They all share an unparalleled mastery with weapons and armor and a thorough knowledge of the skills of combat, and they are well acquainted with death, both meting it out and staring it defiantly in the face. Now fighters learn the basics of all combat styles, swinging an axe, fencing with a rapier, wielding a longsword or a greatsword, using a bow, or even trapping foes in a net with some degree of skill. A fighter is also adept with shields and every form of armor. Now beyond a basic degree of familiarity, each fighter specializes in a certain style of combat. For example, some concentrate on archery, some on fighting with two weapons at once, and some on augmenting their martial skills with magic. This combination of broad general ability and extensive specialization makes fighters superior combatants on battlefields and in dungeons alike. Some very basic information about a quick build of a fighter: you might want to make strength or dexterity your highest ability score, depending on whether you want to focus on melee weapons or on archery. Your next highest score should be constitution or maybe intelligence if you plan to adopt the Eldritch Knight martial archetype. Now since this video is focusing on the early access version of Baldur's Gate 3 and not the full release, we'll do that one at a later date when we get closer to launch, but since we are focusing on that, you can pick as a fighter between two archetypes in the early access, and those options are the Battle Master and the Eldritch Knight. So first we'll cover the fighter basic, and then we'll cover those two archetypes. Now at first level, the fighter does get second wind, so I want to talk a little bit about that. So the second wind ability is a standard action that allows your character to spend a healing surge to regain hit points and gain a +2 bonus to all defenses until the start of the character's next turn. Now you can only use the second wind action once per encounter. Also at first level, you get fighting style, which just basically means you can adopt a particular style of fighting as your specialty. You can choose from the following options, but you can't take a fighting style option more than once, even if you later get to choose again. So you can pick archery, which would give you a +2 bonus to attack rolls with ranged weapons. You can do defense. While you're wearing armor, you gain a +1 bonus to your AC or armor class. Dueling, which means when you're wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, you gain a +2 bonus to damage rolls with that weapon. You can do great weapon fighting, which when you roll 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack, you make a melee weapon that you are wielding with 2 hands. You can re-roll the die and must use the new roll. Even if the new roll is a 1 or a 2, the weapon must have the two-handed or versatile property for you to gain this benefit. Or protection: when a creature you see attacks a target other than you that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll. In order for that, though, you must be wielding a shield or you can choose 2-weapon fighting, which means when you engage in 2-weapon fighting, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack. So those are your choices that you can pick for your fighting style if they go directly with the 5e edition anyway in Baldur's Gate 3, which they basically said they're going to. Now, as second level as a fighter, you get Action Surge, which means you can push yourself beyond your normal limits for a moment. On your turn, you can take one additional action on top of your regular action and a possible bonus action. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. So it's a one-time use per day or per rest. Now, just to let you know though, starting at level 17, although we can't get to that in early access, you can actually use it twice before a rest, but only once on the same turn, of course. Then at third level, you get the Martial Archetype, which means you can pick your archetype that you'd like to pick from. Now, like I said before, there are 2 options in early access, although I expect all the archetypes, as they've said, to be in the full launch of the game. But we're going to focus on the early access in this video, so that leaves us with the Battle Master and the Eldritch Knight, and we're going to cover those 2 after I finish up the 4th level for Fighter. So at 4th level, you get the Ability Score Improvement. Now this means you can increase one ability score of your choice by 2, or you can increase 2 ability scores of your choice by 1. Now as normal, you can't increase an ability score above 20 using this feature. Now you do gain this again, even though it's not going to be available in the early access. You can gain it again at 6th level, 8th, 12th, 14th, 16th, and 19th. Now guys, let's talk about the archetypes because we can only go to level 4 as they've at least stated in the early access. So let's move into the archetypes for the fighter. We'll start with the Battle Master. So the Battle Master is those who emulate the archetype Battle Master, employ martial techniques passed down through generations. To a Battle Master, combat is an academic field, sometimes including subjects beyond battle, such as weaponsmithing and calligraphy. Not every fighter absorbs the lessons of history, theory, and artistry that are reflected in the Battle Master archetype, but those who do are well-rounded fighters of great skill and knowledge, so they have combat superiority. When you choose this archetype at 3rd level, you learn maneuvers that are fueled by special dice called superiority dice. You get maneuvers. You learn 3 maneuvers of your choice, which we're going to detail in a second. Many maneuvers enhance an attack in some way. You can only use 1 maneuver per attack. Now you learn 2 additional maneuvers of your choice at 7th, 10th, and 15th level, although we can't do that in the early access. Now each time you learn new maneuvers, you can also replace one maneuver you know with a different one. So first, let's talk a little bit about the superiority dice. So in D&D, there are 4 superiority dice, which are D8s. It's expended when you use it, and you regain all of your expended superiority dice when you finish a short or long rest. Now you gain another superiority dice at 7th level and one at 15th level, even though we can't go that far in the early access. Now, let's talk a little bit about saving throws. So some of your maneuvers require your target to make a saving throw to resist the maneuver's effects. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the maneuvers, and remember you do get to pick 3 of these, so we're going to cover briefly all of them. So first of all, there's Commander Strike, which just basically means you can forego one of your attacks and use a bonus action to direct one of your companions to strike, which basically allows them to do 1 weapon attack, and of course adding the superiority die to the attack's damage roll. Next up, we have Disarming Attack. So this just basically means when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can attempt to disarm the target, forcing it to drop 1 item of your choice that it's holding. Then we have Distracting Strike, which means that when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can expend your superiority die to distract the creature, giving your allies an opening, which allows you to have an advantage if the attack is made before the start of your next turn. Then we have Evasive Footwork, which means when you're moving, you can use your superiority die and add that number rolled to your AC until you stop moving. Then we have Fainting Attack, which means you can use a bonus action on your turn to feint, choosing a creature within close range of around 5 feet as your target. That creature that you choose gives you an advantage on your next attack roll against that creature in that turn. Then we have Goading Attack, When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can use a superiority die to goad the target into attacking you. Then we have lunging attack. When you make a melee weapon attack, you can expend your superiority die to increase your reach for that attack by 5 feet. Then we have maneuvering attack, which allows you to maneuver one of your comrades into a more advantageous position. Then we have menacing attack, which attempts to frighten the target, which, if it works, makes that creature frightened of you until the end of your next turn. Then we have parry, which means that when another creature damages you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage by the number of your roll with your superiority die plus your dexterity modifier. Then we have precision attack. You can use this before or after making an attack roll, but before any effects of the attack are applied, giving you 1 superiority die to add to your roll. Then we have pushing attack, which attempts to drive the target back, to basically push them back. Now, worth noting, this one does also take a strength saving throw, but it can push the target back around 15 feet away from you. Then we have rally, which bolsters the resolve of one of your companions, which gives them a temporary hit point equal to a superiority die roll plus your charisma modifier. Then we have sweeping attack, which attempts to damage a creature that you choose as well as another creature within the same attack. They do need to be close to one another and within your reach, and the damage is of the same type dealt by the original attack. Then we have trip attack, which tries to knock the target down. This uses strength saving throw for the enemy, and if they fail, it knocks the target prone. So you can pick between those options, and that pretty much wraps up all the information I'm aware of on the Battle Master, at least what will be applicable to 4th level. Now let's move on to the second archetype available in the early access, which is the Eldritch Knight. Now, the Eldritch Knight combines the martial mastery common to all fighters with a careful study of magic. Eldritch Knights use magical techniques similar to those practiced by wizards. They focus their study on 2 of the 8 schools of magic, Abjuration and Evocation. Abjuration spells grant the Eldritch Knight additional protection in battle, and Evocation spells deal damage to many foes at once, extending the fighter's reach in combat. These knights learn a comparatively small number of spells, committing them to memory instead of keeping them in a spell book. Now, for these spells, you'll be able to learn 2 cantrips of your choice from the wizard spell list. Now, you do, of course, all this won't be available in the early access. At 10th level, you'll be able to learn an additional wizard cantrip, and we'll get to all those cantrips in just a second. But now let's talk about the spell slots. So, the Eldritch Knight spellcasting at level 3 allows you to know 3 level 1 wizard spells, and then at 4th level you can learn a 4th level 1 wizard spell, and let's get to those spells right here in a second as well. But first, the Eldritch Knight also can learn a ritual that creates a magical bond between themselves and one weapon. They can perform this ritual over the course of 1 hour, which can be done during a short rest. The weapon must be within your reach throughout the ritual, at the conclusion of which you touch the weapon and forge the bond. Once you bonded a weapon to yourself, you can't be disarmed of that weapon unless you are incapacitated. If it is on the same plane of existence, you can summon that weapon as a bonus action on your turn, causing it to teleport instantly to your hand, and you can have up to 2 bonded weapons, but can summon only 1 at a time with your bonus action. Alright, now let's talk about the cantrips that you get to choose from. Now, you do get to, at 3rd level and 4th level, you'll only be able to know 2 of these, so let's look at those. Dancing lights, which means that you create up to 4 torch-sized lights within range, which makes them like a torch, a lantern, or glowing orbs that hover in the air for the duration. Now, you can combine the 4 lights into one glowing, vaguely humanoid form of medium size. Whichever form you choose, each light sheds dim light in a 10-foot radius, and they can be moved around in a 60-foot radius. Next up, we have Firebolt, which means you hurl a mote of fire at a creature or object within range, which is a ranged spell attack against the target, and obviously does fire damage. Next up, we have light, which means that you touch one object that is no larger than 10 feet in any dimension. Until the spell ends, the object sheds bright light in a 20-foot radius and a dim light for an additional 20 feet. Now the spell ends if you cast it again or dismiss it as an action. Next up, we have Ray of Frost, which is a frigid beam of blue-white light that streaks towards a creature. Of course, this is cold damage, and it does reduce the speed of that creature as well. Next up, we have Shocking Grasp, which is a lightning attack, and gives you an advantage if the target is wearing armor made of metal, since it is a lightning attack, and can also make that creature not be able to take reactions until the start of the next turn. So those are the cantrips you can choose from. Now let's look at the wizard spells available. Now when you first become an Eldritch Knight at 3rd level, you'll be able to know 3 of these. However, at 4th level, you should be able to know 4 of these. So let's go ahead and look at all the spells available so you can kind of decide which one you're going to pick. Okay, first up is Alarm, which means you choose a door, a window, or an area within range, and then it sets an alarm that alerts you whenever a tiny or a larger creature touches or enters that area. Next up, we have Burning Hands, which shoots a thin sheet of flames from your outstretched fingertips. Any creature in a 5-foot cone takes damage unless they pass their dexterity saving roll. It also can ignite any flammable objects in the area that aren't being worn or carried. Then we have the classic Magic Missile, which is 3 glowing darts of magical force. The darts hits the creature of your choice and deals damage. All the darts strike simultaneously, and you can direct them to hit one creature or several. Next up, we have Thunder Wave, which is a wave of thunderous force that sweeps out from you. Each creature in a 15-foot cube originating from you can take thunder damage and is pushed 10 feet away from you. Now, of course, that ends everything that should be available in the early access for Baldur's Gate 3. However, guys, it's worth noting and pretty obvious that although they say they're taking everything from the player handbook in D&D and trying to apply it in the game, that of course D&D is an imaginary game where you can use your imagination, and this is a PC game. But they did say that a very high percentage of it will be in here, so I think this is a fairly good look at everything to do with the fighter class and its archetypes that we could possibly do before the game is out. I hope you enjoyed the video today, and of course I'm going to try to do this for every class, so please stay tuned and subscribe if you're interested. And if you're not going to pick a fighter, you want to see about the others, I'll be covering them in depth as well as quickly as possible, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed the video today. It's a lot of information to cover. It's very deep, just like the game Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be, and of course it is because it's based so heavily and steeply in D&D. I hope you enjoyed the video today, and I hope you subscribe and join me for more as I uncover more classes and more abilities and everything about them. And I want to give a big shout out to the members of Napalm for supporting this channel. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in becoming a member of Napalm, please click the join button down below for more information and a list of perks. And until next time, God bless and happy gaming. Please listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say I'm it's a video buffet. You can even hit replay. But please just subscribe. I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize. But just please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.